Hello and welcome back to the National Production Channel here at YouTube. And welcome to the very first album review of 2019. Now, I was not planning to make this album the very first album review of this year. I had other albums in mind of actually making the very first album review of this year. However, upon getting this copy yesterday, which of course right now as you're watching it would have been right now 2 days. However, since recording it, I got this, received this yesterday. That, of course, is the newest album from Enforcer, titled Zenith. Now, this, of course, is also their 5th album at this point, their 5th studio album. So, before getting this album, if you haven't listened to this album and have seen the fans' reactions on this, you kind of get the reason why almost, for me especially, why I didn't want to initially do a review for this album. Now, if you haven't read those reviews, you definitely, it's a little indicator. However, I was originally we're just going to do some sort of elaborate, sort of in-depth outlook on what this album is going to bring for the band's future and what it's going to hold for them on the difference. And for sure, is this going to be a change in the band's later period, especially when, since this being the very end of this decade, the 2010s, as we move into the 2020s. So, what is this going to be for the next decade? Is this going to be something that's going to help them into the next decade? Or is this going to, let's say, halt their next decade in a way? However, that was my original plan. However, upon listening to this album firsthand, all of that completely changed. My mind, after first listen, was definitely puzzling. And it left me confused. And also, in a way, challenged me. In a way that I haven't been challenged in quite some time. Especially by a new album of this. And for of course, it just left me wanting to definitely kind of give the sound a more of a different outlook. At first, I was really, if I did this on my first listen, I would have been really, really different with this review. I would have been more like my earlier reviews, especially when it comes to my sort of bad album kind of reviews, in a way, the more where I just in the more negative kind of album reviews. It would have been more like that. However, of course, I gave this album 2 more other listens, so with that, I started building up more of a solid opinion of what I kind of think about this album. Now, I am not going to completely share a lot of the sentiments of what every other reviewer or the fan reactions are toward this album. Instead, my reactions toward this one is a little bit more calmer compared to most other people, and it's a little bit more interesting, and I actually end up being more, let's just say, innocent on the sound, in a way, I guess you could say, but I think that's not the best word I can use for this. It's more so, let's just say I'm just not going to be as negative on this. So with that, let's just get right into it. With the album, of course, I'm basing it again off the European bonus track copy, not the Japanese bonus track copy, because the Japanese copy has an extra bonus track besides the bonus track here, which is titled Breaker of the Chains. But I didn't even listen to that track, so I'm not going to focus on that track. We're just going to focus on the bonus track that's on this album, titled To Another World. So that's what we're focusing on. So if you haven't had that copy, you probably could go on and listen to it anyways, because it should be on YouTube. Anyways, let's finally get into the actual album so we can kind of speed this video up. The very first track on this one, at least what kicks it off, is Die for the Devil. Now, when I remember when this album was first released, which was during the later parts of March, at first, it definitely was different, especially when I heard a lot of the reactions on the band's Facebook page. it definitely had me wanting to go check out the song immediately. And yes, it does have that kind of almost melodic arena rock kind of feel to it. However, or poppy kind of stuff to it. However, the more times I listen to the song, or at least it made me actually listen to the song several more times because I end up actually liking it. It's actually really a solid track for what it is, so I actually think it's a pretty good track. However, get into the very second track here, which is the title track, Zenith of the Black Sun, which is definitely, to me, a really good song on the sound. I think you're going to hear that from a few of some of the fans from where it's at. It's definitely one of the best composed songs of this album. Again, building up from this sort of almost synth kind of atmospheric kind of feel, and then building it to this to the band coming in like almost like a prelude or so. Kind of almost seemed like they were going to go into a cover of Thunderbolt from Saxon, but then it builds into this kind of almost Dio era Black Sabbath or Tony Martin era Black Sabbath kind of track, and then building it to this sort of like ending it with that sort of speed metal part, and it's a great freaking track. One of my favorites from there. Third track here, Searching for You. Classic speed metal enforcer. Definitely classic you will get from them. And of course, if you ever watch that sort of track by track video that the band put out on the Nuclear Blast America YouTube channel, they've been working around with this riff since pretty much the beginning of the band in a way. So these riffs have been all since earlier, so it's why it sounds like classic Enforcer, just with the real clean, almost slick, or just real big kind of production this album has. It definitely gives a much more cleaner kind of feel and less heavy, but still is a heavy track in its own right. However, this is where after those three songs on first listen, it's like I like these three songs on here, but when it comes to begin with the song Regrets, is when to me things, especially this middle part of the album, is where I really felt puzzled at first listen. Again, Regrets, it's a ballad. First, again, beginning with this piano ballad. Almost, to me, a lot of people could very well make their kind of comparison to any other band, but for me, the biggest comparison, especially on the beginning part of here, is Styx. I swear, freaking Olaf, he at times, he's like almost at times a dead ringer for like Dennis DeYoung. He just got that kind of vocal range and everything when he starts doing this track, and when it comes to the actual band, it definitely it ends up sounding less like Styx, but at the same time with his vocals, I can almost picture Dennis DeYoung singing a track like this. It's just kind of the way that it comes off, and it's crazy, especially coming in to the next song after this one, which is The End of a Universe, which is definitely back to being slightly rocking kind of feel to it, but again, built around this heavy kind of slow mid-pace kind of riff. But with the chorus part, it definitely ends up having this real big kind of feel to it. Everything's all big around sort of background vocals and layers of kind of stuff for it. And of course, again, when Olaf sings, I swear I can't help but think of Dennis DeYoung for some reason. Every time that it goes in that part, it's just weird for me for such a metal song. But with each of the two listens, it ended up growing on me. So the song is definitely for sure a grower. And the album as a whole, it for sure is a grower for sure. But then let's also get into the very next song after this, which is Sail On. Now, I don't like completely echoing other reviewers' descriptions, everything, but this one is kind of on the money a bit. It's definitely Sail On. Mostly in the guitar tone, has a more of a 70s feel to it. Mostly kind of a bluesy feel to it. More so, almost like a Uli kind of guitar tone for, especially like, for an example, I've Got to Be Free off of Taken by Force by Scorpions. But that's only in guitar tone, because musically and the compositions of it, it's more 80s-like. Because of the production and everything, it gives it more of a 80s kind of feel, like 70s meets late 80s. And it's very odd and weird. And while it is kind of cool and unique for it, It's not something I really can say it's my favorite song off the album, but it for sure is a unique track, especially when playing the album as a whole. It definitely ends up fitting in, but if you want to listen to sort of like classic Enforcer, this is not that kind of song. It's very different in a way, and I'll get to little reasons. I'm only going to go a little in depth on that kind of reason why I feel this song kind of fits in with this album. But still, definitely a unique track, but different from Enforcer. And then, of course, we get to the last song of this middle part, which is 1,000 Years of Darkness. Now, at first listen, this track was different in a way. It's like, again, it starts out kind of interesting, more sort of kind of back on track in a way. A sort of clean guitar, sort of electric guitar part, almost a neoclassical kind of feel. But the thing that really ends up being the elephant for this song is horns. It's got horns on the song. And every time you think of metal bands that use horns, you get the really bad parts of like Raven Stay Hard and The Pack is Back. You think of that, and it just brings up real bad visions of those albums. However, the way it's... and of course I know Riot used it on the Privilege of Power album. But it's probably done rather well over there. But on this one, it almost works, and it gives almost a slight symphonic feel to it. And of course, when it goes to that guitar solo, it definitely becomes very almost Yngwie Malmsteen-ish kind of feel almost. Just without all the real fast, I think that's guitar Bayesian kind of feel of it, Winker Bayesian kind of stuff that you expect from Yngwie, but still just got that neoclassical feel, and it's definitely a decent track on the album. But then, of course, after that middle part, when it begins with the song Thunder and Hell, which brings back sort of classic Enforcer, but in a much more faster, more aggressive way. Almost more thrashier, with there's a slight proto-black metal kind of stuff going on, especially in that middle part before it goes into the guitar solo. That part of the track, which is, at first on first listen, it was different for me. But as the song went on, and of course the two other listens after it, the song really grew on me, and that part really I ended up actually appreciating that part, and as a whole, it's definitely a good song. But again, begin with Thunder and Hell is when things start to kind of get back on track, because after that, Forever We Worship the Dark, which of course to me musically, it's not different from the track From Beyond off of the previous album. However, with the big production and everything, it kind of gives it a more, I guess you could say, overly produced kind of feel, and it makes it kind of slightly poppy-ish. But even though they've been playing with the musically, it reminds me of From Beyond. Again, it reminds me of that track. So again, it's a decent track. It for sure is not too bad for an album, but definitely not. Again, it's a pretty good track for what it is. And then, of course, on the regular copy, ends with Ode to Death, which, again, of course, I forgot also kind of mention that Thunder and Hell ends with this sort of, again, the sounds of like thunder and everything and rain, and go on to this guitar part, almost kind of giving a proggy kind of feel to it. And most of this album does have a slight proggy kind of feel, because it doesn't end with the same theme that it ended with the song. Some songs got that side where it ends with a much more different composition and different rhythm, different beat than before. But again, with Ode to Death, this song kind of starts out acoustic, not really like what you expect with Regrets, because the minute after it hits those acoustic parts and that beginning part, it goes into this slight almost Viking power metal kind of style to it for Ode to Death. And a lot of people seem to rank this as some of their least favorite tracks. I kind of like the song. And it's kind of an interesting feeling, because it's something I don't expect from Enforcer, but it's not something I actually think it doesn't fit them. I don't think that. If anything, this is something that they probably would have used anyways for any of their albums. It just would have been done a little bit differently. But still, because of the sort of Viking, almost epic power metal kind of sound that the song has, almost kind of Manowar-ish, I actually kind of like the song. I think it's a kind of a cool track in its own right. So I'm the first viewer to say I actually kind of like the song "Go to Death." I think it's not a bad way to end the actual album. To Another World has kind of a more of a hard rocking kind of riff to it. Almost sounds like classic, almost like Riot, or kind of like that. Of course, it's got that sort of Welcome to Hell kind of guitar rhythm riff to it. But again, with the sort of middle part that it's got going on, almost like it's got its uniqueness to it. It's like it has a rocky feel, but when it comes to a lot of the chorus part, this little middle part, it's just so weird. But it's kind of cool in a way, but it's weird and unique for this album. So the song is definitely one you gotta check out, but I don't know whether or not you're gonna like the song or not. But still, you might like it at the beginning, but when it comes to that middle part, it's gonna throw you off immediately. That chorus part, it's so different in a way. But it almost fits along with the album. You kind of get what kind of mindset, and if you ask me, I think the reason why each song kind of works for itself is the fact that, well, I almost think this is a concept album. Each song, it seems to evolve around themes of either be scientific kind of themes, or it be about the end of the world, either it be on, it all seems to base around all sorts of themes, but it's all within the same region in a way. It's, again, everything just seems to have a theme that just fits with each of the songs, but it's just musically, it's different. Each song's got its own style, vibe, but I kind of see why they probably did it, because of it's to fit the kind of lyrics that they are. Because if you were trying to make a song like Sail On, Regrets, and have it be called around this metal kind of song, I don't know whether or not it would work very well. So they really decided to go for an ambitious effort with this album, and for sure for some, this be almost considered pretentious, the way they actually did this. But in a way, with each listen, it grows on me more and more. So with that, my rating, it's my personal rating, I'm actually going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a different album from Enforcer, but it's also a very unique one. But I don't think this is going to be something that Enforcer is going to be making more and more. So with that, this video has went on for quite a bit. So if you have listened to the album, which I know you have, it's been out for quite a few weeks. So definitely leave your thoughts on it. If it's negative or positive, whatever. Anyways, this is Simply Thresh, and Sam out. And I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.